Hello, nice to see you again. This is our last tutorial. We'll talk about Mandarin intonation today. First, I will say a few general words about intonation, and then I will introduce you to intonation patterns in Mandarin. And I will also tell you something about the complicated interplay between intonation and tones. Now, what is intonation? With certain simplification, we can say that it is a melody of speech. Melody is, of course, a natural component of speech. I will try to pronounce this sentence in the same pitch. I think you would agree that it doesn't sound very much like natural speech, does it? In the first language, intonation is the component of sound structure which is acquired very early, earlier than vowels and consonants. These are properly acquired later. In second language acquisition, acquiring intonation patterns is quite difficult. And wrong intonation patterns belong to the most robust cues of non-native speech, and they severely contribute to accentedness. As regards to intonation, languages have certain essential features in common. Why? Because we are humans. There are physiological factors which are shared by all humans, such as the mechanism of breathing, or the fact that rising pitch needs more energy and efforts than falling pitch. Now, high pitch and or rising pitch and wider pitch range or sudden jumps in melody indicate emotional excitement, be it positive or negative, enthusiasm, interest, tensity, anxiousness, stress, or also unfinishedness. And on the other hand, low pitch, low and or falling pitch or flatter pitch range and no sudden changes in melody usually indicate some sort of relaxation, calmness, intimacy. It may be boredom, fatigue, lack of interest, apathy, fatigue, or also finality. We can imagine that the melody of an utterance runs into some corridor or some sort of pipe. And the melody fluctuates between this top line and bottom line. As we proceed with the utterance, we gradually and naturally become short of oxygen and short of energy. And consequently, the pitch at the beginning of the utterance is generally higher and then continually falls down towards the end. And this phenomenon is called declination. It is a language universal phenomenon, and it's important for us because it affects the tones. Intonation has two major sorts of functions. Linguistic functions of intonations are not so many. Melodic contours are used in languages to perform these functions. They can indicate difference between statements and questions. Pitch contour can also tell us whether the utterance is already finished or not. And it also helps us to recognize the boundaries of phrases. Paralinguistic functions of intonations are a very much wilder jungle than the grammatic functions. Melodic contours give us cues about the emotions, moods, and attitudes of the speaker. They are very rich and variable. Now we can proceed to Mandarin intonation. As you know, Mandarin is a tone language. That means that changes of melody, of pitch, in technical terms, it's a fundamental frequency, in a syllable, are used for distinguishing morphe meanings. You know that Mandarin has 4 lexical tones. So there are 3 cooks who cook the F-Zero soup, not just tones, but also stress and intonation. While tones and stress are sort of local changes of pitch on a syllable, on the other hand, intonation is a global pitch contour of the whole utterance or the intonation phrase. Now, this soup is quite complex, and we can ask whether all this can work. Yes, tones can live quite well with stress and also with intonation. Here's a famous metaphor. Oh, Zhao Yuanren, a famous linguist, he wrote, "The question has often been raised as to how Chinese can have sentence intonation if words have definite tones. The best answer is to compare syllabic tone and sentence intonation with small ripples riding on large waves. The actual result is an algebraic sum of the 2 kinds of waves." So I think it's a very good metaphor, and it helps you to realize the relationship between tones and intonation. Now, how does it work? We already know from my previous tutorial that tones are elastic. They can accommodate to the needs of intonation while still keeping the distinctive features, such as the rise of the 2nd tone or the fall in the 4th tone. So let's imagine we have that pipe, and what happens with tones? We sort of insert these tones, syllables with tones, into this pipe. And when we do things with that pipe, the tones can accommodate. So if the pipe rises or falls, the tones would go along, and these manipulations do not hurt them. Also, we can compress or widen the pitch range. So the tones become kind of flatter or wider. And also, we can say that these manipulations do not hurt the tones. To sum up, this elasticity of tones brings benefits to both tones and to both intonation and stress. How many intonation patterns there are in Mandarin? Fortunately, only 2. The first one is a falling pattern. This is used for declaratives, imperatives, question word questions, and alternative questions. And the second tune, non-falling pattern, is used in particle mock questions and for non-final prosodic phrases. The question is when to use which tune. Here is an overview. Declaratives or statements use the falling pitch, falling tune. 你去吧. Particle mock questions use the non-falling contour. 你去吗? 你去吗? Then question word questions use the falling pattern. 谁去? Alternative questions. The first part has a non-falling contour, non-falling tune, and the second part has a falling tune. 你去还是他去? And finally, unfinished intonation uses an non-falling contour. 你去，我也去. This is a technical remark, how I mark intonation patterns in Chypriot. The falling pattern is easy. It doesn't have to be marked using any special marks because we have standard sentence punctuation marks. So wherever you see a period, an exclamation mark, or a single question mark, it is a falling pattern, falling intonation pattern. And then we have one special mark. It's a double slash for unfinished intonation at the end of a non-final prosodic phrase. and also a special mark, and it's a double question mark, and this is used in particle mark questions. Now I will give you some examples. First, declaratives. They use a following intonation pattern. Listen to it.
这个月雨很多。这个月雨很多。
You can tell that the syllable 多 is not high. It's 多，雨很多. So although it has the first tone, it's rather low.
这个月雨很多。
Okay, here a more complicated issue, it's particle mark questions. I told you that particle mark questions use non-following intonation pattern. Listen to this short conversation.
这是你的吗？是我的。
你的吗？你的吗？ So the particle mark jumps up. The whole issue is more complicated. How to pronounce the end of particle mark questions? You know that particle mark is toneless, and we already know how to pronounce a combination of particle tones with a toneless syllable. 妈妈、孩子、姥姥、爸爸。But and you have these little diagrams there, but they are just schematic diagrams of two syllables out of context. In connected speech, there is one more factor in the game, and that is intonation. So the whole picture becomes more complicated. The problem is that the pitch contour of the mark questions must obey non-following intonation pattern. That means that particle mark needs to stay high regardless of the preceding tone. And it shows up that it's a problem for all combinations except for the third tone and zero tone. So I will give you examples. So this is a combination of the first tone and particle mark. So the first tone will be high, the whole syllable will stay high as a whole, and then particle mark is pronounced a little bit lower, but not much lower, so that it can stay quite high. 这是书吗? So it's not 这是书吗? But 这是书吗? 书吗? There is a little step down. Then the second tone and ma. 这是鱼吗? The second tone begins rather high. Then it goes up. And after reaching the peak, it falls down a little bit. And then you pronounce the particle ma. It still stays rather high. 这是鱼吗? So it's not 这是鱼吗? It's 这是鱼吗? Now the third tone and the particle ma. The third tone is low, as we know. So the combination sounds like this. 这是狗吗? The third tone keeps low till its end. There is no final rise, of course, because there is no pause. And then the particle ma is pushed up and it jumps high as if you hold a ping pong ball underneath the water and then you just release it. So it jumps up. 这是狗吗? 这是狗吗? And finally, the fourth tone and ma. 这是醋吗? The fourth tone keeps its fall, yet it is high as a whole, and consequently the particle ma can be pronounced rather high. 这是醋吗? 醋吗? Here is an example of a combination of the fourth tone and two neutral tone syllables. Listen to this.
你要这个吗？不要。你要这个吗？不要。
So 这 is pronounced quite high as a whole, and both 个, which is toneless, which is neutralized, so it has no tone, and ma, which is toneless, are pronounced in a neutral tone, and they stay high, exactly where the preceding fourth tone has ended. 这个吗？这个吗？ So there is quite flat fall of the fourth tone, and then you pronounce 个吗？这个吗？ Once more.
你要这个吗？不要。
Okay. The next group are question word questions. They have a falling intonation pattern. These, of course, as the name tells us, they contain some question words such as 多少 or 谁, and the answer to these questions cannot be yes or no. 谁是老师？谁是老师？ Here's a list of Chinese question words. 谁？谁的？什么？哪？哪些？怎么？几 or 几个？多少？为什么？什么时候？在哪儿？ You may ask, why do question word questions have falling intonation? Because people tend to think that all questions have rising intonation, but it's not true. Why? Because it's clear that you're asking a question. If there is a question word, it's clear. So there is no need to have a special intonation in such questions. In many languages, including Chinese, English, and also Czech, question word questions have the same intonation pattern as statements. Now, I will give you examples of questions with question words. So first, 为什么？
他为什么不来？病。他为什么不来？病。
Notice that 来, the second tone on 来, does not rise high. It keeps quite low because there is this there is this falling intonation pattern. Once more.
他为什么不来？病。
This 来 is very flat. The rise is very flat. Now 什么？
什么人来了？我的一个朋友。
So again, this 来 is not 来, it's 来了. It's very low, given the fact it's a second tone, which should rise. Once more.
什么人来了？我的一个朋友。
Okay. Then 哪？
你要哪个本子？我要那个小本儿。
哪个本子？哪个本子？
你要哪个本子？我要那个小本儿。
So the third tone is just in opposition to all other tones, and it's very low. The more prominent it is, the lower it becomes. So here, 哪 is lower than 本子。哪个本子？本子 is not that low. Sorry. Once more.
你要哪个本子？我要那个小本儿。
Okay. And 在哪儿？The mouse is lost again. Here it is.
他在哪儿？他在北京，不在上海。他在哪儿？他在北京，不在上海。
So again, 哪 is very low. There's one tricky thing. Question words can be also used in indefinite function or in relative function. So this is two different situations. If a question word is used to ask a question, it is usually stressed. 你有几个本子? But if a question word is used in indefinite or relative function, it is usually unstressed. 我有几个本子？我有几个本子？ Here is an example.
我们家里只有几只羊，没有牛。 我们家里只有几只羊，没有牛。
Okay, so here you can tell that this ji is not ji, it's jizhiyang. It's very short, and its third tone is quite weak. Once more.
我们家里只有几只羊，没有牛。
The whole thing.
我们家里只有几只羊，没有牛。
Okay. So the next group are alternative questions. A 还是 B? A or B? The first part has a non-falling intonation pattern, and the second part has a falling intonation pattern. Listen to this.
你认为这好还是不好？
Once more.
你认为这好还是不好？
还是不好. It goes down. 还是不好. And no, you may notice that the repeated how is very weak. It's weakened. And here we have unfinished intonation. It, of course, has a non-falling intonation pattern. You know it from my introduction tutorial. You may remember this sentence about the lost glasses.
丢了眼镜儿，我怎么办呢？
Once more.
丢了眼镜儿，我怎么办呢？
So the last syllable in the first prosodic phrase, which is non-final, is jir, but it's not realized as jir here, but as jir. So the whole syllable is higher, and it has a compressed pitch range. So as a result, the fourth tone is quite, it's not that steep. The fall is not steep, it's very mild. Once more.
丢了眼镜儿，我怎么办呢？
Okay, so this is how an unfinished intonation is expressed. So let's sum up. Mandarin has intonation, although it's complicated by lexical tones. And there are only two basic intonation patterns with grammatical functions, falling and non-falling. Intonation distinguishes between questions and statements, and also tells us whether the utterance was already finished or whether it was not finished yet. Beside that, intonation also serves important paralinguistic functions. It conveys emotions, moods, and attitudes. And because Chinese and Mandarin is a tone language, it is quite difficult for us second language learners to combine intonation with lexical tones properly. So that's all about Mandarin intonation, and this was actually our last tutorial. So thank you for watching these tutorials, and regardless of our experiment, I hope that you will benefit from this knowledge in your future studies. So good luck. Bye.